Hello guys, welcome back. In this video, let us have a quick quiz. Let us have a quick quiz on what are the video that we have, what are the thing that we have learned in the previous session. What we learned, that is how browser get the IP address. So let us have a quiz on this topic. So let me write quiz. Okay. Now let me ask you a question and you write your answer and verify. Even I can provide the answer so that you can able to verify the answer and you even rectify your answer so that you will be in the right track. So first question, to browse, what are the two things that browser requires? To browse, what are the two things that browser requires? So I hope you answered this question. So the answer for this question is domain name or host name and IP address. Domain name, or else you can say this as host name. This is the first thing that our browser require. And coming to the second thing is coming to the second thing. Second thing is IP address. IP address. So I hope you answered this question correctly. So now let us move to another question. Second question. Now the question is, while browsing, what do we provide to the browser? While browsing, what do we provide to the browser? While browsing, we'll provide the domain name. We'll remember either domain name or host name, right? We don't remember the IP addresses. Okay. Now let us move on to another question. Is it possible to remember the IP address for every website? Is it possible to remember the IP address of every website? I hope you answered this question. So the answer is no. We do not able to recognize, we not able to remember all the IP addresses of our websites. Now let us move on to another question. When we browse, who is the guy that remember the IP address of the website? When we browse, who is the guy? Who is the guy remembers the IP addresses for websites, or you can say domain names? Who is the guy that remembers the IP addresses when we are browsing? I hope you answered this question. The answer is DNS. The answer is what, sir? DNS. DNS remembered the IP addresses of all the websites. Now let us move to next question. What is the full form of DNS? DNS full form. So DNS full form is what, sir? DNS stands for domain name server. Domain name server. Okay, I hope you answered this question as well. Now let us move to another interesting question. Now the question is, what do DNS do? What do DNS do? Or else you can say, what is the actual job of DNS? What is the actual job of DNS? I hope you answered this question as well. The actual job of DNS is it keep track of all IP addresses and host names, right? Yeah. So I'd like to provide you a content, a note, for you. I'd like to provide you a note for you. What is the note, sir? What is the note? Note is how to check the IP address of a domain. How to check the IP address of a domain by using command. So we use the command. We use the command to check the IP address. The IP address of the domain is, we use command that used to check the IP address is, remember the command ns lookup, which is used to check the IP address of the domain. Okay, let us move to our question session. Next question session. Now the question is, can we say DNS converts? Can we say DNS converts my host name to IP address and my IP address to host name, my host name to IP address, and my IP address to host name? Is it true? Yes. I hope you answer this. Yes. DNS can convert host name to IP address and IP address to host names. So let us move on to another question. Now the question is, if I browse a request, with domain name, then whom should this browser will ask, at first? So whenever I'm requesting for a domain name, then whom should my browser will ask? I hope you answered this question. The answer for this question is local DNS. At first, it will ask for local DNS. Now let us have another question. Question number 9. Now the question is, so let me say, if local DNS has IP address, it give back the IP address, right? Yeah. Let's say the local DNS also does not have the IP address. Then whom? This local DNS, can request for IP address? Whom this local DNS will request, sir? I hope you answered. RNS. This DNS, local DNS will request to RNS. Now the question is 10th question. So the question is, full form of RNS. Full form. What is the full form of RNS? The full form of RNS is root name server. What is the full form of RNS? Root name server. Now let us move for another question. Now the question number is 11. So What is the job of this RNS, sir? RNS job क्या है? RNS job. What is the RNS job? I hope you answered this. RNS will identify. RNS, root name server you can say, will identify from which root the request is coming from. RNS will identify from which root the request is coming from. What are the examples, sir? Examples of the roots, sir? .com we have, .o, .in we have, .org we have, .edu we have, and so on, etc. So let us assume the request is coming from .com. Okay. So let us assume the request is coming from .com. Now the question is, so to identify the IP address, now whom this RNS request, and where request will go. Let's say my domain is .com, then whom this RNS will request and where the request will go, sir? The request will go for TLDs. TLD, that is nothing but top level domain. The request gone for TLD, top level domain. So now let us move for another question. That is question number 13. Let us have this question. Now the question is, what is the top level domain? What is the top level domain? In this example, we assume. So what is the top level domain? In this example, we assume .com, right? Yeah. Since .com is a big top level domain, and it contain what? And it contain millions of websites, and it contain millions of websites inside it, right? Yeah. Among these millions of websites, assume we are looking for google.com. So from top level domain, where the request will go, sir? From top level domain, where the request will go, sir? Where the request will go? The request will go for name server. Where the request will go? Name server. Okay. Now up till name server, my request gone. Now the question is, what does this name server do? What does this name server do? What does this name server do? The name server job is, I hope you answered this question as well. Name server will, what does this name server do? It identifies the domain name. What does it do, sir? It just identifies. It identifies the domain name. Okay. Let's assume it identified my domain name. Now what happens, sir? Now what happened? From the name server, where the request will go to get the IP address? From the name server, where the request will go to get the IP address. So from the name server, where the request will go to get the IP address. I hope you answered this question. Where it will go? SOA. So what is SOA? Now again a question arises. What is SOA? I hope you provided the answer for this as well. SOA is nothing but start of authority. SOA is nothing but start of authority. Now, what does this SOA do, sir? What this SOA will provide? What this SOA will provide? What this SOA will provide, sir? This SOA will provide me the IP address. Whatever the IP address that I am requesting, domain, that IP address was provided by whom? This SOA. So now this IP address will go back. This IP address will go back in the same way. However, however, we get request to SOA corresponding to the same reverse path. In the same reverse path, the IP address was sent to where? To the browser back. So now this IP address will go all the way back to browser. Now browser get the IP address from the domain, or you can say host name. So I hope you participated eagerly and interestingly in this quiz, and you answered almost excellence, and you learned. If you haven't answered, then you learned the question, I think so. So if you like the video, please like it. If you feel this video to reach more audience, then please comment so that it reaches to more audience. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get the latest updates. See you in the next video. Until then, bye bye.